Title: Monster Trap Behind the Wall. The Knocking. Introduction. The first time it knocked, I thought it was just the pipes. Old houses groan and settle, right? That's what people say when they don't want to admit something is wrong. But this sound, it wasn't plumbing. It wasn't wind or rats or the house shifting. It was deliberate. 3 slow, hollow knocks. Always at night. Always behind the wall in my bedroom. No one believed me, but now I know there's something trapped behind that wall, and it wants out. We moved into the house in late autumn, when the leaves had already fallen, and the neighborhood was quiet enough to feel abandoned. My mother said it was perfect, peaceful, remote, affordable. She was all smiles when the realtor handed over keys, but I could see it in her eyes. Desperation. She needed this house to be our fresh start, and maybe I did too. The first week passed without incident. The place was drafty, smelled like mothballs, and the floorboards creaked under every step, but it was ours. There was something charming about its age, at least during the day. At night, the shadows felt longer, heavier, like they pressed in from the corners. My bedroom was on the second floor, tucked into the far end of the hallway. It had peeling wallpaper with a pattern of ivy leaves and a warped window that overlooked the backyard. I remember lying in bed that first night, listening to the house settle, telling myself to relax. That was the night I first heard the knock. It came just after midnight. I had just begun to drift off when a sharp, slow sound echoed from the wall near my bed. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up, heart thudding. It had come from the wall, not the door. I pressed my ear to it, thinking maybe it was a neighbor or a tree branch. But there was no wind, no scraping, just silence. In the morning, I told Mom. She laughed and said it was just the plumbing. I tried to believe her. But the knocking came again the next night, and the next, always the same time, always 3 knocks, never more, never less. After a week, I started noticing other things. Cold spots in the room, even when the heater was on full blast. My phone battery would drain inexplicably overnight. Once, I woke up to find long, thin scratches on my bedroom floor, trailing from the wall toward the bed. I told myself it was my imagination, or maybe I'd scratched it myself without noticing. But deep down, I knew better. One night, I stayed awake, waiting. When the knocks came, I didn't move. I just listened. Knock, knock, knock. I whispered, hello? And for the first time, there was a reply, a low, guttural growl. So faint I thought I might have imagined it, but it was there, coming from inside the wall. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The next day, I asked Mom if anyone had ever lived here before us. She said yes, a man named Mr. Fenwick, a recluse. She told me, lived alone for years after his wife passed. Eventually, he just stopped coming outside. They found him dead in the living room, curled up in a chair. Natural causes, she said. Sad, but peaceful. But peaceful didn't describe what I was hearing at night. So I started digging. In the local library's basement archives, I found an old newspaper article from 8 years ago. The headline read, Reclusive man found dead in decrepit home. Police investigate strange discoveries. The article was vague. It mentioned sealed areas of the house and evidence of structural tampering. One quote stuck with me. We're not sure why he would have reinforced the interior walls. There's no logical reason to fill a wall with concrete. Concrete? That night, I ran my fingers across the wallpaper near the knocks. It was colder than the rest of the room. I knocked back once softly. The wall sounded dead, like something was packed inside it. I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until Mom went to work the next morning and pried the wallpaper away. Beneath it was sheetrock, old and cracked. I chipped at it with a screwdriver, exposing a strange layer beneath. Thick gray rough. Concrete. I kept digging. There were odd symbols carved into cement. Rough, frantic marks, like someone had used a knife or chisel in a panic. The symbols didn't look like anything I'd seen before. I stopped when I hit something softer. A space. Hollow, like a pocket in the wall. The smell hit me then, musty, like old rot and mildew. My stomach turned. From the hole, I heard breathing. Soft, raspy, in and out, in and out. Then the knock came again, right next to my face. I screamed and fell backward, dropping the screwdriver. I scrambled out of the room, heart racing. When Mom came home, I didn't tell her. I couldn't. She was already stressed, working double shifts, barely making ends meet. She needed this house to be normal. I didn't want to ruin that for her. But the knocks didn't stop. They grew louder, more insistent. One night, I woke to find a small hole had formed in the wall, right where I'd been digging. It looked like something had been working from the inside. Through the hole, I saw a single bloodshot eye staring at me. I froze. The eye didn't blink. It just watched. Then it disappeared into the darkness. I covered the hole with duct tape and moved my bed to the other side of the room. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But something behind that wall was waiting. Something old. Something wrong. And it wasn't going to stop. Conclusion. They say you shouldn't go looking for things you don't want to find. But I already started. I peeled back the wall. I woke it up, and now it knows I'm here. The knocking won't stop, and the eye returns every night. Watching. Waiting. I thought it was trapped. But maybe the wall wasn't a prison. Maybe it was a warning. Cracks in the concrete. The duct tape peeled away during the night. I didn't hear it happen. I only noticed in the morning, stuck in a loose curl on the floor like it had been ripped from the wall. The hole behind it looked wider, jagged, like someone or something had clawed at the concrete. And the smell coming out now wasn't just mildew. It was worse. Acrid, sour, like spoiled meat left too long in the sun. I stuffed an old towel into the opening and pushed my dresser in front of it. For a while, things were quiet. The knocks didn't come for 2 nights, and I almost believed it was over, that maybe whatever was had given up, or maybe I was going crazy and imagined the whole thing. I even started sleeping with the light off again, but on the 3rd night, I woke to the sound of something sliding, not like footsteps, not breathing, a dragging sound, like someone was pulling wet cloth across the floor. I sat up and stared at the dresser. It was moving, not fast, just an inch or 2, shifting forward in tiny, jerking motions like something on the other side was pushing. I grabbed my lamp and flicked it on. The sound stopped instantly. The dresser stayed frozen, half an inch from the wall. I didn't sleep again after that. The next day, I did something desperate. I told my neighbor, Mrs. Pollard. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, always peering through her window like she was waiting for something to happen. When I told her about the wall, about the noises, she didn't laugh. She didn't even look surprised. She just nodded slowly like she already knew. "Your room used to be a nursery," she said. "Belonged to the Fenwicks, back when they lived here. Sweet baby boy, never cried much. One day he just disappeared. They said he crawled out the front door and wandered off. Everyone knew it was a lie." "A lie." She leaned closer. We heard it, the screaming, from inside the house. Then silence. When the police came, the walls had already been patched over. No one ever questioned it. Mr. Fenwick was respected, but some of us remembered. Some of us heard the other things, long after the baby was gone. I asked her what she meant by other things, but she wouldn't say. She just shook her head and told me to leave it sealed. But it was already too late. That night, I heard whispers. Not knocking, voices. Soft and slurred, like they were underwater. I couldn't make out the words, but they pulsed beneath the wall, growing louder the longer I listened. At one point, it sounded like someone was calling my name. I ran out of the room and slept on the couch. The next morning, I checked the hole again. The towel was gone. Not pushed inside. Not on the floor. Gone. There were scratches on the concrete now. Deep gouges that hadn't been there before. And worse, something new was growing from cracks. Flesh. It looked like skin. Pale and waxy, stretching out from between the breaks in the cement like the wall itself was starting to bleed. I backed away and nearly tripped over my bed frame. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I took a picture, needed proof, but when I looked at it, the screen was just Static. No image. Just a gray blur. That's when I heard my mom's voice from downstairs. "Sweetie, did you take my keys?" I wanted to scream, to tell her not to come up. But when I turned, she was already in the hallway. She frowned at the mess at the open wall. "What the hell are you doing in here?" "There's something inside." I pointed at the hole. "I swear, Mom, it's alive." She looked at the wall, then back at me. Her expression shifted from concern to frustration. "It's mold," she said. "You've been tearing up the wall over mold?" "No," I whispered. "No, it's not just mold. Please, I just listen." "Enough." Her voice cracked like a whip. "I can't do this, okay? I'm working 12 hours a day, and now this? Tearing up your room because you think the wall is haunted." "Not haunted," I said. "Infected." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she walked over to the hole. I wanted to stop her, to grab her wrist and pull her back, but my body wouldn't move. She bent down, peering into the space. Silence. Then something moved. A hand, gray, bloated, with long yellow nails, shot out and grabbed her by the face. She screamed. I lunged forward, grabbing her waist and pulling with all my strength. For a second, I felt her slipping away, like the wall was trying to swallow her. Her feet kicked, arms flailed. Then, with a wet pop, the hand let go. We both tumbled backward. Gasping, I slammed the dresser back into place and pushed my body against it, panting, as the knocks returned, faster this time. Bang, 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 bang. My mother sat on the floor, hand on her cheek, eyes wide and glassy. There were 4 bleeding punctures on her skin where the thing's fingers had dug in. "We're leaving," she whispered. We didn't argue. We packed 1 bag each and fled the house that night. Slept in her car outside a 24-hour diner. She kept looking in the mirror, touching her face like she expected it to fall apart. The next morning, she called a repairman to seal the wall, told him to patch it with fresh concrete, thick and deep, double reinforced. She didn't go into the room herself. She never would again. I watched as the man worked, watched him fill the space, smoothing the mixture over the gouges and symbols. He joked about rats or raccoons. I didn't laugh. Once the wall was sealed, I thought it might be over. But that night, when I closed my eyes, I saw it. The eye, the same one that watched me before. Except now it was in my dreams. And it was no longer behind the wall. It was inside the house. Inside me. Something in the skin. The dreams grew stronger after we left the house. They weren't dreams. Not really. Not in the normal sense. They felt like memories. Foreign ones, slipping into my head like smoke under a door. I'd lie down, close my eyes, and suddenly I was in the crawl space again. Only this time, I wasn't watching the wall from the outside. I was inside it, pressed in tight, unable to move. My fingers, if they were still fingers, scraped endlessly at concrete. Skin peeled from bone, and yet I kept digging, kept clawing. I could feel the room on the other side, feel the warmth of it, the beating heart of the boy who lived there, the one I wanted to become, the one I hated for having breath, and blood, and freedom. I always woke up screaming. My mother tried to pretend it was stress, night terrors, trauma from what happened, but she didn't believe it anymore. Not after what the thing did to her face. The wounds hadn't healed. They got worse. Red, angry slashes that spread like cracks in porcelain. She covered them with scarves, thick makeup, whatever she could find. But sometimes, late at night, I'd see her standing in front of the mirror, whispering things I couldn't understand. Her mouth moving, her eyes wide and wet, like she was trying to speak through someone else's voice. We moved into a rental apartment across town. Far away, new walls, new neighborhood, but the knocking followed us. It started faint, just taps. I thought maybe it was in my head, but then I found the cracks. Tiny ones, hairline fractures in the paint behind my closet. My mom insisted it was nothing. "This place is old," she said. But I saw how her hands shook when she looked at them, how she started sleeping with the lights on, how she taped crosses above every doorway and kept muttering something about salt. That night, I heard her crying in her bedroom. Not soft, not quiet, desperate. I rushed in and found her curled on the floor, rocking back and forth. Her scarf had fallen away, and her cheek was split open. Not cut, split, like something was pushing its way through from underneath. And Mom, I knelt beside her, but she recoiled like I'd burned her. You didn't hear it, she whispered. It called my name. From inside the wall, her eyes met mine. It wants you now. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the walls. The next morning, she was gone. Not missing, gone. No note, no pack bag. Her car was still in the lot. The door was locked from the inside. I called the police, filed a report, but no one believed me. And when they searched the apartment, the cracks were gone, sealed perfectly, like they'd never been there. I tried to convince myself she'd left, that the stress had broken her, that maybe she just needed to escape. But I knew better. 2 nights later, I found the mark on my own arm. It wasn't a cut. It wasn't a bruise. It was a symbol, a twisted shape like an eye wrapped in claws, burned into my skin like a birthmark that had never been there before. And it pulsed, cold and wet beneath the surface, like something beneath it was alive. I wore long sleeves, avoided mirrors, but no matter what I did, I felt watched. Not just in my room, everywhere. At school, people stared at me, like they couldn't help it. One teacher trailed off mid-lecture, her mouth going slack as she looked at me. Then, with a shake of her head, she snapped out of it, muttered an apology, and went back to teaching. It was spreading. I could feel it in my thoughts. My dreams weren't dreams anymore. I was seeing things, hearing things, like that night when I woke up to the sound of something breathing beside my bed. I turned slowly, praying I was wrong. But there it was, a shape, tall, slender, gray skin stretched too tight over long limbs. Its head was tilted, eyes huge and black and reflecting me. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just watched. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. My limbs were ice. Then it reached out with one long finger and touched the symbol on my arm and whispered, "Soon." When I finally moved, when I blinked, it vanished. No sound, no trace, but the mark burned like fire. The next day, I went back to the old house. I don't know why. Maybe part of me hoped I'd find a way to undo this. Maybe I wanted to find what it left behind. The door was boarded up, but I knew how to get into the basement. The house smelled like rot. I found the bedroom just as we left it. The dresser was gone, moved out when we fled. The wall had been patched, but something was wrong. The concrete was bubbling, like something underneath was pushing out. I stepped closer and saw a face beneath the surface. My mother's face, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes twisted with terror, frozen in the wall like she'd been swallowed by it. I ran, didn't stop until I was blocks away, gasping, heart threatening to explode. But when I got back to the apartment, someone was waiting in my room. Mrs. Pollard. She was sitting in my desk chair, hands folded in her lap like she'd been there for hours. She looked at me with a calm, steady gaze. "It's inside you now," she said. I backed away. "What?" "The thing behind the wall. You didn't trap it. You invited it." I shook my head. "No, I never wanted." "But you looked. You saw it. That's all it needed." She stood slowly. "It lives in watchers, in those who witness. Every time you dream of it, you feed it. Every time you speak of it, you spread it." I reached for my phone, but she was already at the door. "You can't run from walls, child. They're everywhere." Then she left. That night, I didn't sleep. I smashed every mirror, tore every picture off the wall, tried to gouge the mark out of my arm with a knife. Didn't work. It only bled black. Now, the whispers are louder than ever. They say my name in voices that sound like my mother's. They say the wall is thin. They say they're coming through. And they say I'm the next one to be trapped inside. Hollow walls. The walls aren't made of stone anymore. They breathe. I hear them at night, exhaling behind the plaster, whispering my name with every breath. It's no longer just one voice, it's a chorus now. My mother's, Mrs. Pollard's, even mine, echoing back at me from somewhere deep inside the drywall. I try not to answer. I try not to listen. But the harder I resist, the louder they get. They've started speaking in patterns. Rhythms, like some ancient chant that vibrates through my bones. And every time they speak, the symbol on my arm moves. Not just itches, not just pulses. It twists like it's rearranging itself, growing. I don't go to school anymore. I stopped pretending everything was okay after the thing in the hallway reached through the lockers and touched me. No one else saw it, not even the security camera. But I felt the burn of its hand, felt the cold ooze left on my neck. The janitor found me curled under the drinking fountain, shaking, eyes bloodshot. They sent a counselor. She asked me about unresolved trauma. I almost laughed. What's the point of talking to people who've never seen inside a wall? The dreams are different now. I'm not in the wall anymore. I am the wall. I feel people leaning against me, hear their thoughts when they sigh and press their heads to the surface. I see into their rooms, their lives. I feel when they hammer a nail in to hang a picture. It's like a spear driven through my ribs. And somewhere deep inside me, I hear something crawling, getting closer. I decided to follow Mrs. Pollard. I didn't mean to, but when I saw her at the edge of the forest near the old highway, I couldn't help it. She moved like she didn't care if someone saw her, gliding between trees, her long coat brushing the mossy trunks. I followed from a distance, trying to be silent. The deeper into the woods we went, the colder it became. Too cold for spring. I noticed the trees were wrong. Some bent toward each other like they were whispering. Some had symbols carved into them, symbols like mine. After nearly an hour, she arrived at a shack. It wasn't abandoned. Smoke puffed from a crooked chimney. A strange humming noise vibrated from within, like wind blowing across a bottle's mouth. Mrs. Pollard opened the door and stepped inside. I crept closer, pressing myself to the outer wall. I didn't want to knock. I just wanted to know. But when I leaned against it, I fell. The wall gave way like it wasn't solid at all, and I tumbled into a hallway that didn't match the outside of the shack. This place was vast. Cold concrete floors. Black, glistening walls like wet skin. No windows. Just a single hanging bulb that flickered above me. The door vanished behind me. I called out for her. No answer. Just whispers. Traded too soon. Unfinished. He woke it up. I ran. Corridors twisted like intestines. Some led nowhere. Others led back to the same spot. The floor was damp, and my shoes squelched with every step. I slipped more than once, my hands sliding through something thick and dark. Then I saw them, bodies in the walls. Dozens, eyes open, mouths frozen mid-scream, hands reaching forward, as if they'd been clawing for help when the walls swallowed them whole. And at the center of it all, the husk. It looked human once. Still bore the faint shape of a man, broad shoulders, long legs, but the face was stretched sideways, like it had tried to escape its own skull. Its mouth was sewn shut with threads made of hair. It hovered above the floor, twitching like a marionette held by invisible strings. It looked at me. No eyes, but I felt the gaze. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. The symbol on my arm throbbed, and I understood. It was hungry. I turned to run, but a wall had risen behind me. I screamed, pounding on it, begging for escape. And that's when Mrs. Pollard appeared. She stepped from the dark, holding a bowl filled with ash. Her eyes were different now, pure white. Her mouth curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "It has chosen you," she said. "No," I gasped. "I didn't choose this." "You saw it. You remembered. That's the doorway." I shook my head. "Help me. Please, get out of me." She tilted her head. "You misunderstand. You're the trap now." She threw the ash in my face, and I woke up in my apartment. I was standing in front of my mirror. Only it wasn't my reflection. It was me, but not quite. The face in the mirror smiled, without me moving. Its eyes were wider, hungrier. I reached up to touch the glass. It reached first. Fingers pressed against mine from the other side, but they were inside the mirror, and when I looked down, my hand was inside too, halfway through the surface, like it was pulling me in. I screamed, yanking back. The glass cracked, and I fell onto the floor. When I stood, the mirror was whole again. My reflection looked normal, but I knew better. Now the cracks are in every wall of my apartment. Small now, almost invisible, but growing. And at night, when the lights are off, I hear the breathing again. Not behind me, not beneath me. Inside me, I'm starting to forget what silence sounds like. They talk to me constantly now. They tell me she's not dead, that my mother is with them, part of the foundation, one of the voices. They say I'll see her again soon, but I'm afraid when I do, I won't recognize her face. Or worse, she won't recognize mine. Because every day I wake up with a new crack on my skin, and every night the wall behind my bed gets closer, where the monster waits. The wall behind my bed finally opened. No sound, no crumbling, no fanfare, just a slow and silent parting like skin splitting along a healed scar. At first, I thought it was a dream. I didn't move, just watched as the shadows slid outward, revealing the gap. The hole wasn't wide, maybe 2 feet across, just enough for someone to squeeze through if they were desperate or foolish. I was both. The whispers were louder than ever. They hissed through the opening, weaving through my blankets, coiling around my ears. Come closer. Almost home. She's waiting. I lit a candle. I don't know why. Maybe made me feel less like prey. I stepped into the wall. Inside, it wasn't just hollow space. It was a maze. The air changed the moment I crossed the threshold. It became thick, syrupy, hot with breath and rot. The candle flickered, but held, enough to reveal that the walls weren't made of wood or insulation anymore. They pulsed. The inside of this place was alive. Veins throbbed beneath translucent skin. Pores opened and closed like mouths. Some leaked yellow pus. Some blinked, and all of them whispered. I crept forward, slowly. Every step echoed like I was walking on wet carpet. And then I heard her. Her voice. My mother's. Soft, afraid. Help me? I froze. The candle trembled in my hand. The air grew colder. But I moved toward the sound. Around a corner, through a narrow gap, and then into a wide chamber. She was there, curled into a wall cavity, like a child hiding in a closet. Her hair was longer than I remembered. Her skin pale, almost translucent web with black veins. Mom. She looked up, smiled. I knew you'd find me. I ran to her, nearly dropping the candle, and wrapped my arms around her. She was cold, so cold, but I didn't care. Tears ran down my face as I held her. But then she whispered something. Too soft, too fast. It wasn't my name. It wasn't even English. The candle flickered violently. I pulled back and realized her smile never moved. Her mouth hadn't spoken. The wall had. Suddenly, her face twisted, not in pain, but in transformation. The skin split across her cheek like paper tearing. From underneath, something else stared at me. Black eyes. No pupils. Something not human. I stumbled back, tripping over bone and rot on the floor. My candle went out. Total blackness. But I could hear it moving. Not her. It. The thing wearing my mother's face. It scraped against the walls, dragging limbs too long to belong to her. Clicking teeth against drywall. Laughing without sound. I crawled backward until I hit something solid. A door. I didn't hesitate. I threw myself through it. The moment it shut behind me, the sound stopped. I was in another room. Dim red lights. Walls made of stitched fabric. Symbols scrawled in every direction. And at the center, him. The husk, no longer suspended. He stood now. No threads. No mask. Just a mouth wide open in a permanent scream, and arms that reached all the way to the floor. His skin looked like mine, because it was mine. Every inch bore the same symbols that had spread across my arm, now etched from head to toe. And when he moved, I moved. I tried to back away. He mirrored me. I screamed. He screamed. And the walls answered. They rippled with noise deeper than thunder. A groaning, grinding voice that cracked the air. "You are the lock," it said. "You are the key." The husk lunged. I ran. I don't remember how I escaped, only that I burst through the drywall of my own room like it was made of paper, splinters embedded in my arms. Blood ran from my nose. I collapsed on the floor. It was morning, and the wall was gone. Not the whole, the entire wall. Where my bedroom wall had been was now a gaping void, looking into an impossible black expanse that didn't match any other apartment geometry. Just swirling shadows and the faint shape of a doorway far in the distance. Someone stood in that doorway, watching me. I slammed the bedroom door shut and pushed my dresser against it. I locked myself in the bathroom for 2 days. I didn't eat. I barely breathed. The whispers still found me. They always do. On the third night, I woke up to a knock on my window. I live on the 3rd floor. The knock came again. I peeled back the curtain with shaking fingers. There was nothing until I turned around and saw the mirror. My reflection was gone. In its place stood it, the husk, only now it wore my face. Perfectly. It smiled. I didn't. It lifted its hand. So did I. It reached toward the glass. So did I. Until I realized I wasn't controlling it. It was controlling me. I fought it, screamed, threw the mirror to the ground. It shattered into 100 shards. Each shard reflected something different. Not just me, but memories I didn't recognize, places I had never been, faces I had never seen, and all of them looked afraid. I picked up the largest shard and held it close. In its reflection was a hallway, familiar, alive. The wall breathed again. The monster was waiting, not behind the wall anymore. Inside me, reflections in the shard. I stopped sleeping after that night, not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I wasn't dreaming anymore. I was there, back inside the wall, back in that maze of meat and whispers and impossible corridors. The husk didn't chase me in the dream. It guided me. I'd wake up with blood under my fingernails, dust in my throat, drywall flakes in my mouth like I'd been eating the house from the inside. But it was the mirror shard that scared me most. I kept it wrapped in a towel under my bed, but sometimes I'd hear a hum, not loud, not even audible to the ear, but it made my bones itch like radio static soaked into my marrow. I took it out again on the 6th night. I had to know what it wanted to show me. I held the shard close. In the glass, my face didn't appear. Instead, I saw the hallway again. This time it was closer. The walls were breathing faster, like they were excited or afraid. Then a door appeared at the end of that hallway, red with a gold handle. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place why. As I watched, the shard grew warm in my hand, almost hot. The room around me dimmed, like all the light was draining into the glass. And then I heard her. "Elijah, please." "Mom again." Only now her voice was clearer. Desperate, I looked toward my bedroom wall, where the gaping black void had been. The wall was back, whole, like nothing had ever happened. But a red door was there now, exactly like the one in the shard. I stood frozen. The shard trembled. My reflection slowly returned in its surface. But it wasn't me. It was the husk again. This time it was crying. Tears of dark red slipped down its cheeks, staining the carved symbols that still pulsed across its skin. It raised a hand and pointed toward the door. I didn't want to go. Every cell in my body screamed not to, but I moved. The door didn't resist. It opened with a soft groan that echoed like 1,000 voices sighing at once. Inside was not another hallway. It was a room I'd never seen before. A nursery. There was a crib in the center, a rocking chair in the corner. The walls were covered in peeling yellow wallpaper, etched with drawings, some childish, some grotesque. Stick figures with missing eyes, smiling faces with stitched mouths. One drawing looked like me, except it had no skin. The whispers returned. So many voices now. They bled through the walls like smoke. He was supposed to stay. He forgot what he did. Lock him back in. I stepped closer to the crib, There was something in it, not a baby, something smaller, wrapped in gauze like a cocoon. It twitched. I didn't want to touch it, but I had to. When I peeled back the gauze, I saw teeth. A mouth sewn shut. No eyes. No nose. Just a wide, grinning mouth stitched closed with thick black thread. Its head rolled back, and it laughed. Not a baby's laugh. Mine. I screamed and stumbled backward. The nursery lights flickered. The walls groaned and began to crack open, like flesh tearing at the seams. The wallpaper bubbled. Black fluid leaked from the ceiling. I turned to run, but the door was gone. Only wall. Only whispers. Only it. The husk stepped from the shadows across the room, still wearing my face. But now parts of it were missing. Flesh peeled away to reveal bone. Its eyes were hollow, deep wells of black static. I remember now, it said. Its voice was mine. Lower, slower. You left us here. You locked us in. I shook my head, backing away, but there was nowhere to go. No, I didn't. You did. You cut the wall. You made the door. You closed it. You forgot. But we didn't. The walls shuddered violently. You were the first to see behind. My head throbbed. Flashes of something flickered in my mind. A basement. A chalk circle. My hand holding a knife. And her. My mother. Screaming. Then nothing. The husk stepped closer. Its chest open like a blooming flower of ribs and wet heat. Inside, I saw the nursery again. And her, trapped in the crib, still alive, still whispering. Elijah, come home. I fell to my knees. I couldn't breathe. The shard pulsed in my pocket. I grabbed it with trembling fingers and held it up. The reflection showed not one husk, but many, all with my face, all with missing parts, all watching. The original husk reached toward me. This time, I didn't run. I let it place its hand on my chest. Cold fire surged through me. I couldn't scream. Memories flooded back. Not dreams, real. I had opened a passage in our house when I was 10. I had heard the whispers, followed them. I had gotten lost. And my mother came looking for me. She never came back because I sealed the wall. Out of fear, out of selfishness. I'd forgotten to protect her. Now the wall remembered, and it wanted payment. The husk leaned in and whispered something in a language I didn't know, but somehow understood. Then everything went dark. When I woke, I was in my bed. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. The wall was whole. No red door. No cracks. No whispers. I sat up. My skin was whole. The symbols were gone. And in my reflection across the room, the mirror showed only me. But then, a knock. Not on the door. Not on the window. On the wall. Soft. Rhythmic. Like something waiting. Smiling. Tapping. I leaned in close. Just before I turned away, I heard one last whisper. You came back late, Elijah, but the others are still inside. Then the tapping began again. Steady. Endless. Waiting. The tapping never stops. The tapping hadn't stopped. I counted 32 knocks in the first hour. Then another 30. They came like clockwork, every few minutes. Not loud enough to scare me, but constant enough to remind me. Something was still back there. Still alive. Still awake. At night, it got worse. The knocks turned into scratching. Then whispering. Then laughter. I tried moving out. Packed my bags, called a friend, left the house at dawn. But somehow, I woke up in my bed again the next morning. The bags untouched. My phone powered off. The front door still bolted shut. The wall was winning. I stopped fighting it. For a while, I started recording the sounds. Installed a camera aimed directly at the wall, set to night vision. I needed proof. Something to remind me I wasn't going crazy. On the first night, nothing happened. The footage showed me sleeping restlessly, tossing and turning. Then around 3:09 a.m., the camera glitched. Just for a second, a flicker of static. When the feed returned, I was gone. My bed was empty, but the covers still moved, like someone was underneath them, breathing slow and steady. At 3:13, the sheet was pulled down by invisible hands, and a face peeked up from underneath. Mine, but not mine. It blinked once, smiled, then stared directly into the camera. The footage ended there. I don't remember any of it. I reviewed it the next morning in complete silence. My hands trembled the entire time. I uploaded it to a private server, hoping I'd find someone online who could explain it. I never heard back. The video disappeared the next day. The file corrupted. The server unreachable, like it never existed. I started seeing things in mirrors again. Every time I walked past the bathroom, the hallway, or even the toaster reflection, something moved just slightly after I did. Always a beat too late. Always just out of sync. I stopped looking in mirrors after I caught myself smiling when I wasn't. Then came the phone calls. Always from a blocked number. Always silent, except for the tapping. Same rhythm. Same count. Over and over and over. One night, I screamed into the receiver, "What do you want from me?" And a voice answered, faint, wet, childlike, to come back. I slammed the phone down, unplugged it, burned it in the sink, but the calls kept coming, even without a phone. I could hear them through the faucets now, through the walls, through the shards of glass. One night, I got desperate. I smashed the bedroom wall with a sledgehammer. Nothing, just insulation, beams, pipes, no hidden passage, no red door. But then I saw it, tucked behind the insulation. A box, old, dusty, taped shut. I pulled it out with shaking hands and placed it on the floor. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of me, different ages, different expressions, but none of them taken by anyone I remembered. In every picture, I stood in front of the same wall, sometimes smiling, sometimes terrified. In one, I was screaming, blood pouring from my eyes, hands pressed to the surface as if trapped behind it. And in every photo, every single one, a face watched me from the shadows behind the drywall. The same face, the husk. I dropped the photos, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. Then I saw the last item in the box. A mirror shard, not the same one I had before. This one was shaped like a triangle, sharp, jagged, glimmering faintly with that same unholy light. When I picked it up, it burned my skin. And suddenly, I wasn't in the room anymore. I was inside again, inside the wall. But it had changed. Now, the halls were lined with mirrors. Hundreds, thousands, each one reflecting a different version of me. Some weeping, some grinning with mouths too wide, some clawing at the glass. One pressed its hand to the mirror, and so did I. Our fingers matched, but its skin was rotting, peeling, and it whispered something I didn't want to hear. You never left. You just forgot. The shard vanished from my hand, and I was back in my room, sweating, screaming, alone, except the wall was different now. Not visibly, but I could feel it. It was thinner, hungrier, more awake. And that night, the tapping turned into scraping, like nails dragging along the inside, trying to get out. Or worse, trying to let me in. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. And just before dawn, I heard my mother's voice again. But this time, she wasn't crying. She was singing. A lullaby. Soft, melodic, and deeply wrong. A song I hadn't heard since I was a child, since the night she disappeared. I pressed my ear to the wall, and her voice stopped, replaced by mine, whispering in reverse, over and over. You were never alone. You were never alone. You were never alone. I think I started laughing then. I'm not sure. The world tilted. My reflection cracked. And I finally understood what the husk wanted. It wasn't to kill me. It wanted me to remember. Everything. The wall isn't a barrier. It's a mouth. And it's hungry. And it remembers who fed it first. Me. I saw myself inside the wall. The knocking stopped. That should have made things better. It didn't. It just made the silence worse. Louder. Deeper. Like the house was holding its breath, waiting for something. I didn't leave my room for 2 days. I barely ate. I barely moved. The mirror shard I found still sat on the dresser, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I thought about throwing it out the window, but every time I approached it, my body just froze, like it wanted me to keep it, like it had its own gravity. On the third night, I heard the floorboards creak outside my door. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, an old lamp, and held my breath. Another step, then another, then nothing. I slowly opened the door. The hallway was empty, except for the trail of footprints, wet, muddy, leading toward the end of the hall, toward the wall. Not just the wall, the spot where it had all begun, the exact square of drywall, where I first heard the tapping. And now, in the center of it, was a handprint, not painted, not drawn, pressed from the inside. 5 fingers, smeared, bloody. I reached out without meaning to. My fingers hovered over print. It was warm, and then the wall rippled, like water. I stumbled back. My heart almost gave out, but I didn't run. I didn't even scream. I just stared, frozen, because on the other side of that ripple, I saw myself, not my reflection, not a trick of the light. Me, standing behind the wall, watching, same face, same eyes, but different, wrong. It tilted its head, and I could feel it tilt mine too, like a puppeteer pulling strings. Its mouth moved. I couldn't hear it, but I knew what it said. Let me out. I blinked, and it was gone. The wall was solid again. Cold. I fell to the floor, gasping, drenched in sweat. That night, I locked every door, every window. I piled furniture in front of the bedroom entrance and buried the mirror shard in a box beneath the floorboards. But sleep didn't come. Instead, I dreamed. I was a child again, back in my old bedroom, the one before we moved, the one where Mom disappeared. She was standing at the foot of my bed, humming that same lullaby. Her face was soft, kind, but her eyes were hollow, deep pits of shadow. "Come see what you did," she whispered. Then the walls around me peeled back like skin, and I saw it, the maze, endless, twisting, alive, behind the walls of every house I'd ever lived in, all connected, all breathing. And at the center was me, dozens of me, hundreds, all of us screaming, clawing, dying. I woke up with claw marks on my arms. Not deep, not fresh, but definitely real, and definitely mine. I called a priest. Didn't tell him the whole story, just enough to get him here. He was hesitant, but kind. Walked through the house, sprinkled holy water, mumbled prayers, told me to open the windows, let light in. He paused at the wall. "Someone died here," he said softly. I asked who. He didn't answer, just stared at the wall, pale and sweating. Then he turned to me, eyes wide. "You need to leave." That night, he died in a car accident. No one saw what happened. They just found a vehicle wrapped around a telephone pole. But the strange thing, they said he didn't hit the brakes. No skid marks, just full speed into steel. And the expression on his face? Smiling, like he'd seen something. Something he recognized. I started digging again. Old newspapers, archives, city records. I found the original blueprints for my house. And what I found made my stomach drop. There used to be a room behind that wall, a sealed nursery. No door, no windows, just 4 walls, a crib, and a single mirror. The previous owner? A woman named Evelyn Mercer. Her child disappeared without a trace. Police suspected kidnapping, but nothing was ever proven. They found Evelyn a week later, inside that very room. She clawed the walls bloody, trying to get out. Written 1 word across the mirror in her own blood. Hungry. The house was sold months later. To my parents. I was 3. Everything started making sense. The voices, the mirrors, the shadows. The wall wasn't haunted. It was feeding. And I was part of it. That night, I went back to the wall. This time with no fear, no confusion, just understanding. I pressed my hand against it, and it moved again. Liquid. The surface shimmered, and I saw everything. Every version of me. Every choice I never made. Every moment I forgot. I saw my mother screaming from inside the wall, begging to be let out. I saw myself, older, decaying, smiling. I saw the husk, and I saw what was coming. I pulled my hand away. The ripple faded, but the connection was made. Now, I hear the tapping everywhere. In the pipes, in the air vents, in the silence between heartbeats. It's getting closer, not just to me, but to others. I see it in people's eyes now. The reflection that lingers too long. The twitch in their movements. The way they pause in front of walls. It's spreading, and I think I was the first crack. The wall isn't just in my house anymore. It's in every house. Waiting, humming, feeding, and soon it won't need to knock. It'll just open. The blueprint beneath my skin. I don't know how long I've been sitting here. Time feels strange now, slippery, fragmented. Sometimes the sun rises twice in the same day. Sometimes it never rises at all. The walls aren't just walls anymore. They breathe. I swear they expand and contract like lungs, exhaling memories I never lived, inhaling my fears. I can feel them pressing in when I sleep, whispering when I blink, watching. But the worst part? I think the house is starting to build me. I woke up yesterday with a pattern on my chest. Not a rash, not a bruise. Lines. Precise. Faint at first, but deepening. They looked like veins, except too perfect. Like a blueprint. And when I traced them with a finger, I felt it. A hum beneath my skin. Like wires. Circuits. Something growing. I tore at it with shaking hands, trying to scratch it off, but all I did was bleed. The lines didn't fade. They just smiled up at me, as if they knew. I can't stay here. I know that now, but I can't leave either. I tried. Packed my things. Bolted out the front door. Ran 5 blocks. Everything looked normal. People walking dogs. Sprinklers watering dying grass. A kid biking by with earbuds in. But when I turned the corner, I was back on my street. Same cracked sidewalk. Same flickering street lamp. Same dead bird on the mailbox. I tried again. Took a cab. Paid the driver extra to take me as far as the highway. We made it to the on-ramp. And then silence. The driver blinked once. Twice. Then he looked at me and said, "We're here." I looked out the window. My house. Right there. Right where it always is. He smiled, teeth too many, and drove off. I didn't even hear the engine. Now, I don't bother trying. Instead, I've started peeling back the walls. Literally. The wallpaper in the hallway came off like skin. Underneath, not wood. Not insulation. Flesh. Pale vein pulsing. I pressed my ear to it. Heard a heartbeat. Not mine. Not human. A slow, deep thud. Boom. 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 I followed it. Room to room. Wall to wall. It led me to the basement. A place I hadn't dared enter in weeks. I turned on the light. It fizzled and died. Of course. So I used a candle. The wax dripped red. Not white, red. At the base of the stairs was a new door. Metal, rusted, covered in handprints. Small, childlike. I tried the handle. It turned easily. Inside was a corridor that shouldn't exist. Narrow, endless, lined with mirrors. But not mirrors like you think. These ones didn't reflect me. They reflected things wearing my skin. In one, I was a doctor, slicing open a patient and laughing as they screamed. In another, I was tied to a chair, skin rotting, teeth falling out, whispering, "I'm still alive," over and over. In another, I wasn't human at all, just a black, crawling mass pretending to be. Every mirror was a version of me, every version worse than the last. I walked for what felt like hours, maybe days, and then I found it, the blueprint, etched into the floor, glowing faintly. It wasn't just a house. It was the world. And it was changing. Corridors stretching. Rooms folding into each other. Dimensions bleeding together like wet ink. And at the center, a figure, taller than the house. No face. Just hundreds of arms and a torso made of eyes. I recognized it instantly. The monster behind the wall. But it wasn't a monster. It was a builder. And I was its material. It didn't speak. It didn't move. It just watched. Then I woke up, in my bed. No candle. No mirrors. No blueprint. But the marks on my chest were deeper. Bleeding now. Spelling something. A name. I don't know whose. I won't say it. I'm not ready. Today, someone came to the door. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. A woman, dressed in black. Pale as salt. She handed me an envelope and said only one word. Prepare. Then she left. No car. No footsteps. Just vanished down the street like mist. I opened the envelope. Inside was a photo of me, standing inside the wall, smiling, holding something. A baby. I don't have a child. I never did. But in the photo, the baby looked like me, and worse, it looked afraid of me. There was a message scribbled on the back. Don't let yourself be born again. I don't sleep anymore. I sit by the wall, waiting. Sometimes I hear crying. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes the scraping of nails just behind the drywall. And sometimes, when everything is quiet, I hear my own voice whispering, begging me to stop. But I can't. I need to know what I am, what I've become, or maybe what I always was. One part left. Home is where the monster lives. I stopped looking for a way out. There's no point now. The house is no longer just a house. It's a womb, a vessel, a creation chamber. It built itself around me, and now it's finishing its work. The lines etched into my chest have spread across my body. Not tattoos, not scars. Instructions. Every night, more of the blueprint reveals itself under my skin. It glows faintly when I stand in darkness, casting sharp, jagged patterns on the walls. I've tried to scratch them off, burn them, drown them in bleach. They don't fade. They just rearrange. Now, my eyes see things I shouldn't see. When I stare at the walls long enough, they peel back, like paper soaked in water, and I see them watching me. The things behind the structure. Long, sinewy figures. Faceless. Boneless. Their mouths hang open in perfect circles, as if always screaming, though I hear no sound. They press their hands against the barrier, and the drywall bulges, like something inside the walls is trying to breathe. Sometimes it leaks. A black sludge, thick and warm, oozes through the cracks in the corners of the ceiling. It smells like rotten iron and something else, something alive. I mop it up. I burn the cloth, but it always returns. The woman in black came again last night. I didn't open the door. She was already inside. I found her sitting on the living room floor, staring into the fireplace. No fire, just ashes. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice in my head like a radio signal cutting through static. It's time. I didn't answer. She turned to me. Her eyes were hollow. Deep sockets with writhing shadows where irises should be. The walls finished its part. Now you must open it. Then she dissolved. Fell apart like ash in the wind. Left only a key behind. It was cold. Too cold. Made of bone. Etched with the same markings as my skin. I knew where it fit. Behind the wardrobe in the upstairs hall was a section of wall that never quite matched the rest. I moved the wardrobe. The floor shook. The lights died. And there was a small bone-white door, child-sized, barely visible unless you looked at it directly. The key turned with sound like cracking joints. When I opened the door, the room didn't exist. It was not space. A void filled with impossible geometry. Shapes that shouldn't intersect folding into each other. Colors I don't have names for. Time ticked sideways. Gravity was optional. And in the center, me, or something wearing me. It stood on the ceiling, barefoot, eyes stitched shut. Its skin was pale and cracked like old paint. It opened its mouth, and I heard my own voice scream. Let me in. I ran, but the house didn't let me. The walls shifted. Hallways closed like trapdoors. Doors led into windows. Windows into empty frames. I ended up back in the nursery, the one that shouldn't be there. Inside was the crib. And the baby. Only it wasn't a baby. It was a shriveled thing, curled like a spider, Its head too large, its limbs too thin, eyes black and bulging, mouth full of teeth, too many for something so small. It looked at me and spoke in my voice. You made me, now finish me. I fell to my knees. The room tilted, spun, and I realized this isn't about escape. It never was. The house didn't trap me. It needed me to finish what was started, to give birth to whatever's behind the wall. I crawled out of the nursery, bloody, broken. The walls pulsed with light. That black fluid poured down the stairs, pooling around my feet. It smelled like despair, like memories I never lived. In the living room, the final change had come. The wall, it was gone, or rather, opened, not like a door, not like a window. It had peeled back like a chrysalis, and from within it, something stepped out, not fast, not slow, just inevitable. Its face was a mirror. I saw myself, my worst self, smiling, hollow, hungry. Its voice was mine. I was always here. You just had to look. I should have run, screamed, fought, but I couldn't, because I understood the wall didn't hide a monster. It was growing one, and I was the soil. It stepped forward, reached into my chest, not violently, gently, and it pulled. Out came the blueprint, alive, breathing, written in blood and memories. It held it up to the ceiling, and the house changed. Everything melted, furniture dissolved, floors stretched upward, stairs folded inward. The walls breathed one last time and collapsed into light. Now I exist between, not in your world, not in theirs. Somewhere in the wall, watching, waiting, and listening for you, because once a wall is fed, it builds again. Be careful when you move into a new house. Pay attention to what you hear behind the drywall. If it breathes, if it scratches, if it whispers your name, don't answer. Don't knock back, because something might answer, and it will look just like you,